always the people you least expect to become the most popular. Aimil Smith. Element Nature. Zodiac Aries. March 23rd. Blood type O. Age 12. Aimil is one of the fan favorites of Monomyth. No lie, most polls and audience opinions seem to rank her neck and neck with Madeline, the latter of which I'm sure is only as popular because she's the main character. Aimil Smith is the younger sister of Patty, the daughter of Olivia and Patrick, the sister-in-law of Tam McNamara, and the best friend of Muriel. She is also the most quintessential medieval peasant girl we have in this story, while still having a name and identity. Because of this, Aimil's primary concern is eventually becoming a housewife. Simply put, it takes all types. The importance here is that Aimil is allowed to choose to become a housewife, or at least trained to be one. People might find this surprising, but there's still a fair amount of training involved with being a domestic. The same is true now as it was then. Too often, the concept of a housewife is glamorized, especially by online tradwife content creators, and people forget, or can be straight up ignorant, to what that sort of work looked like. So let's take a day, or a week, or a month in the life of Aimil, and look at the village through what she's likely experienced as a female person in her village who's preparing for a life of a wifery and motherdom. After getting up in the morning, Aimil would typically bathe with a damp cloth and basic soap, like the stuff they get from McTeague. Bodily cleanliness was actually a lot more prominent than modern pop culture leads people to believe, even among the lower class. Washing the body was referred to broadly as topping and tailing, which involved washing the face, underarms, and nether regions. Or as George Carlin would say, armpits, asshole, crotch, and teeth. Full immersive baths were less frequent and typically only seen as a luxury or for medical treatment. But daily routines and hand washing for every meal were the established standard. Common soap was derived of tallow or animal fat and perfumed with herbs and flowers because without this additive, the soap absolutely stank. Then she would use things like herbal powders, botanical washes, and perfumes in lieu of modern deodorants. The abrasive potash or ash lye was added to soaps that were used to wash clothes. Speaking of clothing, the white layer of Aimil's outfit would generally be a sort of white gown that goes all the way down to either the knee or the ankle, depending on the time of year. These white garments were easier to keep up with because dyes and embroidery were expensive, so it's most likely that Aimil tends to wear her skirt and vest over a simpler white gown that is easier to keep clean and have multiples of. Next came oral hygiene. While toothbrushes didn't exist, many people would use rough linen cloths or sea sponges to scrub their teeth. Layering this with things like sage, rosemary, or even salt helped keep gums healthy and breath relatively fresh. Not by today's standards, but yeah. The difference here is her hair. Aimil would generally rinse her hair with water and certain herbal infusions, but harsh soap wasn't generally used as the lye was extremely bad for hair. Instead, daily rigorous brushing was essential to remove dirt and distribute natural oils called sebum. Sebum is naturally secreted by hair follicles and protects hair from damage, bugs, and keeps it waterproof and healthy. She would also use a specialized bronze comb should any unfortunate nestings be found. In order to keep her skin clear, Aimil would use a face mask of natural ingredients made from oatmeal, honey, and egg whites, while any unusual spots and blemishes would be treated with things like vinegar, rosewater, or mild sulfur-based astringents. Now, I don't think you guys want me to get into clouts necessarily, but in medieval terms, that didn't mean something you did for notoriety. They referred to linen or cotton cloths that were attached to an undergarment or a belt and used throughout a woman's cycle. Because that's the reality, listeners. People and bodily functions obviously still existed within a fantasy setting, especially with that historical fantasy tag. Think of it like reading a codex in Assassin's Creed. Hey, in fact, quick tangent, but let me put this out to you. Should we change what these videos are called? Comment down below, either Codex or Bingo. Now, after Aimil had done all of that to get ready for the day, she'd proceed with her chores, which there were a lot. Young women preparing to be wives during the Middle Ages went through a great deal of preparation, and some things were heavily dependent on class. Being a blacksmith's daughter, Aimil wouldn't technically have the money since the smith was such an important part of the village, but at the same time, the resources available in Owlden keeps them strongly rural, at least for now. The village is barely 2 decades old after all. So she'd be learning a number of agrarian and crafting skills, caring for livestock like feeding chickens, sheep, brewing ale, and preserving food. She'd find herself responsible for things like cooking, baking, spinning, and weaving, which were essential not only for the survival of the family, but her entire village. In order to do this, Aimil travels from house to house, and is probably not the only girl to do so. We mentioned her friend Muriel earlier, a daughter of the MacLeod family, but also Tam's sister Mary would likely be involved as well. These girls together would share in a sort of communal knowledge transfer, not only learning from their elders, but from each other in the finer points of these things. The concept of a nuclear family is a relatively new one, derived from the 1920s by Bronislaw Malinowski, a social anthropologist, and based on the Freudian concept of the family acting as the core unit for personal development. The older saying, "it takes a village to raise a child," is more likely true, though it's interesting, we don't know the exact origin of this phrase. Many people point to it being an African proverb with variations across many tribes across the continent, but there have also been roots in this found in Native American tribes as well. Either way, this sort of communal living was way more common in the Middle Ages, especially in smaller villages. This collective was the primary mode of teaching, especially young girls, and even the finer points of womanhood, like sex and childbirth. They didn't really have doctors in the same sense, or teachers to divide up a classroom and show off those really awkward and sterile tapes on an old TV. So instead, the girls all learned this way by talking with their mothers, aunts, and other women who had already given birth, and also from watching animals or even their neighbors. The birthing process, therefore, was seen as a teachable moment. But I can't personally think of a more harrowing way to be taught this stuff than by watching someone screaming in agony while bringing new life into the world, only for a mother to turn to her daughter and go, "That's going to be you one day, sweetie." No, thank you. True medievalists know that age 12 was generally considered to be the youngest a girl could consent to be married to a man of no upper age limit. However, I've found recently this was more rare than people might think. Yes, according to the Roman Catholic Church, the age of consent was considered 12 for girls and 14 for boys. However, marriages at this age were typically either for economical reasons or among higher class families. Ages 16, 17, and 18 were more common, but also some people could be married young but still live with their original families. Consummation and cohabitation often occurred after the actual marriage and could be a number of years. Really, it depended on the girl's dowry and whether or not the man was financially capable of supporting his family. Regardless of social class, families prepared for a girl's marriage by assembling a dowry. This is a sort of economic gain that would be given to her husband upon marriage. This could consist of money, land, household goods, or even livestock. The transfer of this dowry was the economic engine of the marriage. A well-prepared dowry was the girl's primary currency and significantly impacted her marriage prospects. Given that Aimil's family are blacksmiths and teachers, and Aimil herself tends to do dozens of odd jobs specifically to acquire not only skills but goods and belongings that increase her dowry and thus increase her marriage prospects. But let's be serious, she's really only honed in on one specific person. So what can ultimately be said about Aimil Smith as a person? She's multifaceted. She's good at a lot of things, and she tries to learn as much as she can. Sure, it's necessarily because she wants to be the best partner that she can be for her husband and her family. But overall, it makes her a good and knowledgeable friend who, when allowed to speak her mind, is good at coming up with ideas because she's already been there and seen so much. She helps make tea all the way in the saltings. She carries flour from the mill to the bakery. She helps Patty organize the forge. She helps her mother cook. She's learned animal husbandry, probably some forms of medication. She studies magic with Madeline, and aside from being resourceful, is also extremely observant, having spotted bees for honey and a previously undiscovered cave, as well as a field of flowers where Scottish flames and blue wildflowers grow in such abundance. It's like a marriage of the sky and the hearts of Scotland men throughout the country. Aimil embodies the spirit that makes Owlden a community, many a mickle max a muckle, and without her there, who knows what might happen to the rest. Thank you everyone for your continued support, and I look forward to giving you even more in the future. Our community keeps expanding with authentic viewers and subscribers that tune in every week excited for the next installment. Whether that's listening to my world building rants or tuning in for a full episode, you're the ones that keep this channel afloat against an unforgiving algorithm that keeps trying to douse the flame. That's the meaning of many a mickle max a muckle, many smaller things making a big thing. And now, a shout out to our patrons and channel members.
Plebe64 Potato.
Mr. Lobo King 8778.
P64P.
Regios 001.
Jack Plays K Plays.
Maria Elsa 6363.
Moose Now.
El Dragon Biano 3742.
Jack McLeod.
Persephoroth.
Josh is Mary.
Runaway Train 2502.
EA Shadow Gamer.
Sigma LaFleur.
Crochet Whimsy 413.
Anubian the 1335.
Angels Art and Gaming.
Aisha Kashif.
Pluve 81.
Aegis Knight.
7-Star Sanctuary.
And Chained Furry.
Emily Masternardi.
Heinrich 28.
Shadow Fox.
Arya Gamari.
Charles Tam.
Jace Morland.
Pammy Poo.
And Lunder Lumen.